Welcome to the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions, now in its 26th season. Our panel features a longtime Penn State media and NitWits tag team. Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of Lions 24/7 with Fight on State. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ's Ryan Riskey. And each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntingdon. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store. By Brent Kogan Electrical Services, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, the power of physical therapy. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs, candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Harry's Construction, if you can dream it, we can create it. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
Penn State opens up Big Ten play with a 30-13 win on the road against Illinois. The defense forces 5 turnovers. They really came to play. We'll break it all down. Nittany Nation Overtime is next.
Hey, what I'm doing, hey, getting right to it. Yeah, the money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I drew it. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, it's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch.
Welcome into another edition of Nittany Nation Overtime. I'm your host, Ryan Riskey. As usual, I'm joined by the Nitwits, Mark Brennan, Neil Radu, and our special guest, Mike Irwin, who was the captain of the 1966 Nittany Lions. And guys, lots to like defensively with 5 turnovers.
First of all, great to see you, Mike. Mike's an original nitwit. And,
well, it's good to be here to rejoin you guys.
Yeah.
I watch the show on a regular basis, but
Appreciate
it'll
that.
never be the same, I'm sure.
Hey, the defense, I'm so impressed with, I mean, you're talking about 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and their great player, Kalen King, didn't get one. So they're going away from the way Manny Diaz is adjusting defensively. I mean, this defense has a chance to be dominant. Of course, we're not going to totally measure them until maybe later in the year, but so far, I think they're out to an outstanding start. I mean, you're talking about they've allowed a second score late in each game, and that was by their second unit.
Yeah, you know, when you went into this game and you saw what Illinois did against Kansas and just played very poorly defensively, I think a lot of us figured that Penn State was going to be able to light it up and give Illinois credit. I mean, Brett Bielema did some good things against a young quarterback, but I think it's the sign of a good team where things don't go exactly as planned, but you still find ways to get it done. And not only did they get it done, they got it done with authority. I mean, they were able to play their backup players for most of the fourth quarter. So everything doesn't go according to script. There's some things to work on going into the whiteout for Iowa, but your defense comes up big and carries the day, and that's what good teams need. Things are not going to go exactly as you plan every game.
You know, this has to be the best defensive secondary they've ever had down there.
Better than yours?
Well, we're not going to go there right now. But
Since then.
No, yeah. But I'll tell you, it's outstanding. In fact, they have so much talent on that team, and trying to stay up with the numbers and the players is a job in itself. You know, that there are a lot of good talent. I think they're 2 and 3 deep at almost every position down there.
Now, they did have all of the turnovers. One thing they allowed was 350 yards total on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would say about that is early in the game, they didn't tackle well at all. And then if you go to the short touchdown run by Illinois, that was terrible tackling.
Yeah.
But they picked it up after that. And then I think if you take a closer look at the stats, you'll see a lot of those numbers came in the fourth quarter. Now, I'm not saying that's okay, because against the better teams, you better be tackling well throughout the game. But if I have one nit to pick with this defense, it's that the tackling has not been crisp. You know, down in and down out. But overall, when you end up doing what they do, you hold a team to 7 points when the game is still a game. I think you can hang your hat on that.
I think it was just 62 yards total rushing for Illinois. Yeah, I agree with that. The tackling, and they haven't really started all that great against West Virginia and against Illinois. I think that's why I say about defense, Diaz's adjustment, because they've sort of been vulnerable to the run early, and then kind of made the adjustments. And I don't know that it was really bad tackling on the part, because he bowled over Dixon and Ellis at the same time. And
well,
I just
thought
thought
guys were jumping on at the end, and I thought there were just to me there was just too much of that early in the game. Yeah, but they did tighten it up.
I thought the one touchdown, that kid just made it incredible.
But I think Illinois could come in. Their game plan was to run the ball against Penn State. Then when we had all those interceptions, they had to go to a passing game, and it never worked out for them. They were running the ball.
And their quarterback
well.
is a mobile quarterback, so their offense is more based on trying to get him out in space and him being able to create plays, and he wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, well, going back to what Mike said, when you look at the secondary that Penn State has, they have, they're 2-3 deep there, and you're able to bring back a guy like Daquan Hardy, who's like the ultimate Swiss Army knife. You can play him outside, you can play him in the slot, he can be that prowler guy, and they were able to do a lot of those 5-6 defensive back packages against power type stuff. And that's the beauty of what Diaz is able to do. He sees what's working, and then you let your pass rushers loose, those athletic guys, Zane Durant and all those guys, and they got a lot of hits on the quarterback and forced him to make some mistakes. And the other funny thing is everybody's looking at the quarterback and how poorly he played. How about that Illinois offensive coordinator? It's like, what are you doing? You're playing right into their hands.
Yeah, I thought they got away from the run while the game was still close, and they had some running success. What impresses me is how much man-to-man coverage Penn State's coming up with these interceptions. Great catches, and Dixon and Hardy's catch was terrific.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult, because back in the 60s when I was there, we played mostly zone defense, and so they didn't have the offenses weren't as wide open as they are now. The only area on defense, I think the linebackers are outstanding. The defensive line, they're probably not as heavy as some of the bigger teams. Probably Illinois had a great defensive lineman there, that Newton.
Yeah, I would say, Mike, though, they are significantly heavier than they were last year. So they're not as big as like a Georgia or somebody like that. But when you have Akeem Beeman in there at 295 now and Zane Durant at 290 plus, absolutely. You don't have the 330, 300, and Jordan Davis, those kind of players. But I think they're athletic enough in this defense to ultimately get it done. We're going to find out pretty soon, because Iowa's going to come in here and try to run the ball down their throat.
Iowa and Michigan especially.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
We're going to try to run the ball right down our throats, and we'll see how they handle that. But they're talented. You read about how talented. They're all like 270 or something like that.
They're bigger than that.
Well, they got Izzard back yesterday. He made 2 sacks late. So your point about the depth, and if you're not sure who these guys are, because they don't put their names on the jerseys yet, but so there's so many interchangeable parts, and a lot of these guys are fairly new to the program.
That's why Neil's in the press box demanding that the press box announcer announce names, numbers.
Yeah.
He has his glasses on. He's trying to figure it all out. He's as confused as anybody is, Mike.
Yeah, that's not true.
My take would be put the names on the jersey.
He's bothered by that.
He wants to do that. Neil wants to do that, I guess.
Ryan sits behind us. He knows.
Hey, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah, I
It'd be
just
a lot
sit there.
easier.
Oh, I need. This is a separate show. I want the numbers for the opponent.
Okay.
I know the home players, the
So
Penn
he
State
says.
players.
Oh, yeah, he knows them.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to discuss the offense and Drew Aller's performance. Stay with us.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Reed and Selene Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. And by McAlear's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, welcome back into Nittany Nation Overtime. We just discussed the defense forcing 5 turnovers, but the other side of the ball, offensively, especially in the pass game, I think it left something to be desired. And as Mark, you said, Brett Bielema came up with a great game plan to try to shut down Drew Aller, and he struggled.
Yeah, I mean, for Aller, I actually think that's going to end up being a good thing in the sense that you knew somewhere along the way everything wasn't going to click for him. I didn't think it was going to be that game. To be honest, I thought he was going to be able to pick these guys apart. But it turned out to be that game, and what I liked is he didn't panic. He didn't throw an interception. He stayed calm. He wasn't rattled. And ultimately, things started to come to him a little bit. And again, I just think that's really big. He took what they were kind of giving him, but what an odd game in Nick Singleton ends up being your leading receiver. Trey Potts, the backup running back, throws your only touchdown pass, and then your backup quarterback is your second leading rusher. So things did, again, I think it's another one of those instances. Things did not go to plan, but they still figured it out.
I don't think it was all that unexpected, being it's his first trip on the road in the Big Ten. He was a little off, probably missed an open guy or two, but his receivers let him down.
Yeah.
I mean, he had four balls that were dropped. And at your point, hey, this guy hasn't made a turnover since he's no interceptions in like 13 games. He's poised. He ran, didn't fumble. He protects the ball. So yeah.
So maybe, as you said, Neil, the receivers did kind of let him down. Keandre Lambert-Smith actually entered play as the leading receiver in the Big Ten. He was held to 3 catches for just 23 yards.
Yeah.
Well, in fairness to him, I thought Aller did miss him down the sideline one time. I thought I had a bigger issue with Keandre. But one thing that you can say, and I know it's kind of a cliche, but it's true, Aller may not have won the game for them, but we've seen quarterbacks lose those kinds of games for Penn State where things when things aren't going well and they start trying to fire it and it's intercepted.
They're fortunate we didn't have any turnovers.
Yeah.
I mean, and he hasn't had a turnover all year. And I think I know in your column, Neil, that well, I don't know about your column, but they did have some drop passes.
I'm having a tough show.
Everybody's beating up on Neil.
I can take it.
Okay.
The original nitwits are getting on
But I
him.
really think Illinois come in underrated. I mean, I think everybody looked at them and didn't, because they had a close game with Toledo. That I don't know how good Toledo is. I remember we lost to them. And somebody called me and said, "Holy Toledo!"
That's right. That's right. There's a headline, Mike. Well, I think James put this well. I think Clinton James he called it a beautiful win on the road, and everything was. I think he was a little more annoyed with how the game went and maybe wanted to let on publicly. But I thought the statement that he made, I liked. He said, he said that they didn't take control of the game, but they didn't lose control of the game. And I think there was a lot to be said for that. And that would speak to Aller, just kind of managing what was there and overcoming not his best.
But again, he had those balls that were dropped. I don't know how many, probably 4 balls dropped or something like that. So they didn't help him out now. And a couple times he's probably thrown them away because, he doesn't want to get intercepted and turn the ball over.
And another thing, Trey Wallace didn't even have a catch.
They missed him.
Yeah, he didn't play. I mean, he was banged up. So and that was, a guy who came in for him. Malik McLean. He had two of the drops, and you hate to point guys out, but this is big-time college football, and this guy gets an opportunity to start. You have to catch those balls. One was the second pass of the game, and one was early in the first half. So those are tone setters, and I don't think it was surprising that after that happened, we saw a lot more of Dante Cephas out on the edge.
And he had a couple nice catches too.
The other guy I think we can look out for, that Saunders that's in there.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's catching these punts and he hasn't dropped anything yet. I'm thinking they're putting him in a tough situation down there. And I read his background. I think he's going to be a factor.
Like one thing that hasn't changed over the years is what it takes to be a punt return guy. You know that. You had elite people bearing down on you. Just tell us, because when people see him catch that, it's like, oh, that's easy. Yeah. Explain that to people.
Well, the one I remember clearly was out of Michigan State. It was a windy day, and I'm on the 15-yard line, and the ball punted down, and I caught the ball. Fortunately, I didn't drop it. Fortunately, I don't think I ever dropped one. But
it's pressure, right? It's
yeah,
hard.
you feel
People
the
are coming
pressure.
at you, yeah.
But you're there on an island by yourself
Yeah.
trying to catch a ball.
That's a good way to put it,
But
on an island.
But Saunders is the real deal, I think. And I don't know, he hasn't had an opportunity to run many back. He did
Then they brought him in and started giving him a chance. They threw the ball to him a couple times, and I think you'll probably continue to see it because, Wallace, it was probably a little underappreciated coming into the season. Everybody thought Keandre Lambert-Smith was going to be the man, and maybe he will be. But Wallace was sort of like that safety valve you could tell Aller has a lot of chemistry with.
And another guy who only had one catch was Liam Clifford, except it was a huge 33-yard completion down the sideline.
Yeah, that was an unbelievable ball. I mean, it was an unbelievable catch. I don't want to take anything away from Liam, poor Liam, everybody's always talking about somebody else. But, I mean, this was just an unbelievable catch by that guy and a great throw at a time when they really needed it. So Liam Clifford's a guy who stepped up, and I think between him and Saunders playing that slot position, you have two nice little options going there.
Did you guys?
Like Clifford really had a background. He comes out of Ohio with his brother, and I think they thought, well, maybe they just put him on the team because of his name. But he really had an outstanding high school career out there, and he's going to be one heck of a player.
Did
He's
you guys
already playing well.
think that Allen should have caught the ball in the end zone? From the press box, it looked like it would have been a great catch because it was kind of floating a little bit away from. But as I watched it on TV, it was a great throw, and I think he probably should have caught it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a running back, I think a receiver you expect to catch that. For a running back makes that catch, that's an elite play to me. For a running back, that's the kind of thing that maybe you see out of a Saquon Barkley. Even with Saquon, there were times where we saw him bobbling some of those. So will Allen get there? I don't know, but I like the fact that they're involving the running backs more in the passing game because Singleton ended up, again, being their leading receiver.
49, yep, 49 yards in the game. Now we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll dissect the kicking game, which had its struggles earlier in the year. Stay with us.
The NitWits are being brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. And by Star Beverage. No matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through one-stop beer store.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, welcome back into Nittany Nation Overtime. And guys, the kicking game had a strong game after its struggles earlier on in the year. Alex Falcons made 3 field goals, and truth be told, they needed those field goals with the way the offense was struggling.
Yeah, it looked like he solidified the job. They've gotten. I thought the return game was good. Mike mentioned Saunders, and Singleton did better on the kickoff returns. They did have a field goal blocked. They had a punt deflected, so there's still some room for work there.
Yeah, I also like the fact that Singleton was able to get some things going in the kickoff return game. So we're starting to see some of those hidden yards being generated that, 5 here, 10 here, 15 here, 20 here. Those things all are big later in the game. To me, the biggest issue I had with special teams, I was wondering why they kicked that 52-yard field goal at that point. I mean, I guess maybe they feel good about where they are in that game, and sooner or later you might have to try one. Do you want to see if this kid's up for kicking it from that distance?
Well, I'll tell you why they tried it is because they, shot themselves with a bazooka.
That's not the point.
In
Once
the
you
foot,
get
and
there,
they wanted to get something out of that series because they had screwed it up
How'd
by
that go
having
for you?
an unsportsmanlike penalty. Well, I mean,
that's a different debate, and both of
but
us.
it was the same series. That's why they probably went for it.
But that block was not the kicker's fault. I mean, if you look back and watch the tape, it's Newton coming from behind from a linebacker spot and jumping up in the air with his hand up in the
Well,
air.
then you're not getting it up high enough, though, right? I mean,
but he's trying to hit it 52 yards, so you're not going to hit it too high because you're trying to get the distance. So
Right, and I like that they did try because at some point you're going to need to make one of those kicks in what could potentially be a closer game, down the stretch.
Getting back to Neil's point, though, which is very valid, you cannot have a veteran player like Keandre Lambert-Smith get that penalty when he got it. They were facing 3rd and 2, and it's after the play, and he's flagged. And you know what? You could quibble with the flag. The fact of the matter is there was a shove. Who knows what he said? That thing will cost them a game against a better opponent. He is too good of a player. That's an NFL caliber player. He's a leader of the team. and he can't do that. So regardless of whether we think they should have kicked a 52-yarder or not, they should have never been in that position.
Right.
That's 100% right, too. Now, we're going to have to take another break. When we come back, we're going to crown our Nitwit of the Week and preview the match against Iowa.
Don't miss a minute of Nittany Nation Overtime, now also on Apple and Spotify.
The Nitwits are being brought to you by Brent Kogan Electrical Services, lighting the way for you. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Lions 24/7 with Fight on State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
All right, welcome back, guys. It's time to crown our Nitwit of the Week. I won the previous week. Did I win again, Neil?
It's Mark.
Oh, really?
Tell you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mark
It
won
was.
again. Look at that.
Yeah.
He's got that second football next to his name. Neil, you still got a goose
We
egg.
might have to squeeze the guy.
Got a
Much
little.
as I don't
I'm
want
catching
to.
some breaks in these late
I'll
late
say.
in these games. Oh, you can't even give me credit.
I just did.
I know. I did
Feel
get
the
lucky
love.
in both of those.
All right, guys. Well, another thing, they're playing Iowa this week, and kind of one thing I wanted to talk about is that Iowa offense had a historically bad offense last year. Kirk Ferentz, the head coach, keeps his son Brian as the offensive coordinator, much to the dismay of Hawkeyes fans. And now he has a
That's how
revised.
it works, isn't it?
Yeah, now he has a revised contract that he has to score 25 points per game, or his contract will be terminated.
So what's going to happen when they get into a situation like Penn State was in against West Virginia, and they're not taking a knee late?
And they did that. They scored in the final minute.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, first of all, I'm done worrying about if people score in the final minute or take a knee. I don't care. I mean, it's to the
It's
point
football.
now. Yeah,
It's
it's the point now. It's football, and people are looking at margin of victory and whatnot. But I do think if that has to be put into your contract, if anything other than winning is in your contract, it's kind of a head scratcher to me.
This has been a cool series, though. I mean, both have won on the other guy's field. You've had tenured coaches throughout this series, sons as well.
The 6-4 game.
But
Kirk
yeah,
has been there for 25 years.
incredible. And
Hayden Fry before him, right?
yeah,
for
just a
bunch
lot of
years.
stability. I mean, we've been out to Iowa. It's a neat place. It's, the people are friendly out there, and I just think it's been a good series. Hey, of course, everybody's sights are set on Ohio State and Michigan, but this is a game you got to win to get to those.
And they always have a great defense every year. Defense
Yeah.
and special teams is how they win games. It's usually not offensively, except you can't have the futility that they had last year.
And they did score 41 points on Saturday
It was
night.
the first time this year they scored 25 or more in a game.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a little bit of an edge in this series. Stuff happened out there the last time, basically Penn State was accused of kind of faking injuries.
And then their players were getting booed when they went down.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be remembered.
Here we go.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Iowa gets the whiteout treatment this year. It's former Michigan quarterback Cade McNamara. So I guess it's time to make our picks, and I guess by the rules, Mark has to go first.
Yeah, Neil's stealing my thunder a little bit. There's no surprise there, but the way this game shapes up, I think a lot of guys from Penn State were on that field, coaches and players, when people were booing them for faking injuries. Ferentz said he smelled a rat. I mean, that's a pretty big word to throw around.
And James immediately responded and listed the players who were injured, and it was like starting players that they couldn't afford to have come out of the game.
So I think there's a ton of respect for this team, but picking where I'm picking, I'm going to set a little bit of a tone here and see what everybody else does. I'm going to go Penn State 35, Iowa 14. Whiteout, angry people, physical, little bit of a beatdown.
Okay, I'll go next. I think that Iowa is a physical challenge, but the whiteout, the fact that Penn State's particularly offensive line and receivers, I don't think had their best game this past week. I think this is going to be a rallying point for improvement. I don't know about 35 though. I'm going to say Penn State 32, Iowa 16.
All right, I'm going to go Penn State 27, Iowa 10. I think that offense just struggles to move the ball all game in the whiteout. I think the crowd is going to be able to create more false starts. Like last year, there were 5 false starts in the first half against Minnesota for the whiteout. I think the crowd's going to make it real tough on that Iowa offense, except I think their defense will be able to keep them in the game.
And I'm going to go, they've gone 10 games at 30 points or more. So I'm going to pick 30. I think that Penn State's going to win 30-17. And I think Iowa's going to come in and try to run that ball right down our throat, and they've been successful in doing that. So I think it's going to be a closer game than people expect. I'm going to go 30-17. I don't know what the spread is.
Okay, Mike.
And Kirk Ferentz
it's
coach
right
teams
on the
are
number.
very disciplined also.
13.5
Is that what
spread.
it is?
All right, guys, so that's all the time we have. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next Sunday to recap the whiteout over Iowa.
Thanks for watching WTAJ's Nittany Nation Overtime. Tonight's show is brought to you by DeLeo Games, Cisney & O'Donnell, The Student Bookstore, Joe Comfort Toyota, Legends Power Sports, and Belding & Mall.
The NitWits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, a firm foundation for your financial future. By DeLeo Games, serving the community since 1945. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, carpet cleaning, and rug cleaning. By Reed & Salaney Orthodontics, providing friendly, family-focused orthodontic care in Altoona, Bedford, and Huntington. By McAlear's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Remax Results Realty Group, committed to a culture of professionalism, productivity, and exceptional service. By Dorman's Jewelry, the answer is always Dorman's. By Star Beverage, no matter what type of weather, we are a convenient drive-through, one-stop beer store. By Brent Kogan Electrical Services, lighting the way for you. By NovaCare, Altoona and State College, the power of physical therapy. By Fullington Tours, offering round-trip transportation to and from Beaver Stadium from locations in State College and Altoona. By Blair Candy Company, the one-stop shop for all your tailgating needs. Candy, snacks, paper supplies, and more. By Harry's Construction. If you can dream it, we can create it. By Lions 24/7 with Fight On State, your online home for Penn State football and recruiting coverage. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Monday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.